coming live on this?
We can't be live without something weird happening at the beginning. And so it wouldn't be a welcome to the party stream if something weird wasn't happening at the beginning of the show. And of course there is, because the special guest with us right now is Zed's wife, Portia, who just got some water dumped on her, I do believe.
Sure. Dumped on me. That's totally the right word. I would call it being licked all over the face.
Oh, yeah. Okay, do that again. Let's hit that for posterity.
No.
Oh my gosh.
No.
Pure professionalism here at Welcome to the Party. That's what we give you every night. Every game we see,
I was doing fine.
We never break.
Yes.
This was all scripted and planned. This was our opening bit. Indeed. Oh. Okay.
Can I have my chair now?
Why did you lick me in the eyeball?
Can I have my chair now?
You two figure out who's going to be on this show, and I don't care at this point. I can always change the overlay.
I could be on the show, honey.
Hi.
So
All
what?
right.
I could be
So,
on the show.
we're going to start.
Enjoy it.
I don't know what they're doing, but the rest of us are going to start. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome home. What do we want to call this? Our RPG and D&D and all things RPG community talk show that we just decided to start on a whim, because that's how we roll. Well, I mean, we've been talking about it for a while, but we...
Do they know they're live?
They do know they're live, and this is live television, ladies and gentlemen. This is what we do here in live TV.
Oh my god.
And yeah, that's not weird. It's starting to get weird is the problem. At first it was kind of funny, and now it's just starting to get weird and a little disappointing.
One guest leaves. Two guests enter. One guest leaves.
Okay, so we're just all going to ignore whatever's happening down there and talk amongst ourselves. Because what? Okay, good. Bye. Jesus. Well, hello and welcome. We are doing Welcome Home. Welcome Home is our RPG and D&D community talk show where apparently it's also about marital spats, which is a thing that happens sometimes in real life, and we're all about that reality in our drama here. My name is Sean, also known as Throck. I'm the co-founder here at Welcome to the Party, and we are incredibly excited to see you with us tonight. We decided to put this together because we've been wanting to do a talk show for a long time, and it felt like a good time to start it. That's pretty much it. So our hope is to have interesting and engaging discussions about not just gaming itself, but the gaming community as we go through this. And we don't know if this is going to be the night. This is kind of a test right now, as this is our kind of pilot episode to see how things work. But if it does well, we'll keep it around, and we'll find a permanent time for it, which will be great. So, yeah, Sean Throck Place, co-founder here, and let's go around and introduce the rest of our panel for the day, starting with Jack.
Hey everybody, I am Capjack over at Captain J Cross on the Twitters, and it feels weird to not follow this up with, and tonight I am playing.
Right?
But no, just gonna be myself and, talk about stuff. This is fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. Sweet. Leona, yeah, I'm so used to asking about characters too that I'm like, what do I say now? Yeah, Leona, hi.
Hey everyone, I'm Leona. You can find me on Twitter at Leona Maple, and today I am playing Leona. Yeah. Hello.
Hello, and Zed.
Hi, my name is Zed, otherwise on Twitter at ZedX, ZEDECXZ. And tonight I will be playing Throck, otherwise known as Throckmorton or Sean. I guess
That's an incorrect statement.
Okay, I'm just going to be playing Zed then? I mean,
Yes.
all right. That's a little boring, but okay, I'll manage.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's
Okay,
okay.
please nerf.
So I wanted to talk about beginnings. I thought it was an appropriate thing for episode 1, is to kind of talk about how things start. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of beginning different stuff, not just like how do you get started in gaming, which is the first obvious question, but it is the first question I want to ask each of you. And we'll start with Leona, one, because I know the story, and two, because I was part of it. How did you get started in role-playing? And not just did you get, and when did you first hear about role-playing stuff? And then when did you play your first game? What was your experience like? Stuff like that.
Okay, so, I mean, I kind of knew about roleplay before I joined Welcome to the Party, and before I ever got to like even see D&D. I knew about roleplay itself, and I like used to do roleplay online. You know, I think we all some of us definitely had a origin story there of like finding stuff online, and that was kind of my first brush with it. But being able to play D&D is kind of like the real deal, and so I've ever since I started this, I've been like, no, I love this. Yeah, so that was kind of like my first brush with it, and then it was actually Capjack that told me, and they were like, hey, you've got this great community, they're gonna be super super welcoming, you know, great for folks that have never played D&D, like you should totally join. And I was like, no. I was like, oh god, no, I'm way too shy, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm not doing it. And I said no a whole bunch of times. I was like, nope, nope, nope. And Jack was like, well, why don't you come and just watch the show? And I did. And I think it's hilarious. It's all the people that have influenced me being here all on this one show. It was the first charity stream was not Trans Lifeline. No, it was Trans Lifeline. Yes. So charity stream for Trans Lifeline, and I watched the the late night game that Zed was running, the zombie game. Watched that, laughed until I cried, and was like, damn, okay, I get it now. And then started watching Friday Night D&D, which at the time was Dragon Dark Days and Waterdeep, that was being run by Doc, and Jack was in that one too. And before you know it, I was like, okay, I really want to be on the other side of the screen. Sure, screw it, why not? And so I joined the Discord, and then my first game was Honey Heist at Christmas last year. Followed up in January with A Crusade of Thorns, my first ever campaign, I guess. That was my first ever campaign. So I kind of dove in the deep end, but now that I'm here, I would never go back. I'm so glad that I've had a chance to learn and play and just have a blast. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna follow that up with why. Why won't you ever go back? What is it you are loving so much? As probably definitely the newest role player at the table here, what's keeping you going? What gets you excited? Why are you like, oh, I love this and I'm never gonna go back?
Well, for me, it's the magic of like you're in the moment, right? Like when you're doing stuff online, you can like, and you're just like writing or doing a play by post, you can sit there and you can kind of think about what you want to say. Nah, when this is live and on stream and you have that audience interaction, it's whatever comes to you right away, right? It's like whatever happened in the heat of that moment, and like creating a story together with other people and having it really just like blossom so beautifully. Like it's magic to me. It's absolute magic. And I think it was Deborah Ann Wool who kind of spoke about that in one of her shows, or like one of the clips that she has when she was promoting the show that she ran on Geek and Sundry, Relics and Rarities, about how D&D is kind of like the original, right? And it's like, you know, it's what everyone else wants to be, but that was the original inception or idea that it all came from. And so it's like once you get a taste of that, you can't go back. And I remember she said something like that, and I was like, yep, it's true.
Right. So, yeah, no, and I mean 100% the same. Is I used to be personally into D&D, and anybody should feel free to like pipe in. This is a conversation. Don't feel like you're locked into step with, you know.
I thought we were like doing an around the table kind of thing.
But this is also kind of a freewheeling discussion about gaming stuff, right? Like, we don't expect there to be a significant forum. I have some questions written down that I'd love to get feedback from everyone. But if you have thoughts, have thoughts. We're just talking. To wit, I agree. I used to love like the empowerment thing in role playing a whole lot. Like, I was, as a little kid, a kid who like, oh, I hated to lose, and like I got really sad when like my character got hit or missed an attack. And now I'm like, I just love to tell a story. Let's just go tell a story. That's what I love. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Zed, what about you? Oh, good.
Well, I was so. I'm gonna go in reverse order. No. Anyway, sorry. I had kind of a brain thing for a sec. Something I'm sure everyone here can relate to. I started in gaming with Magic: The Gathering. I was at summer camp in 95, 94. Ice Age was new. To give you some idea how long ago I started. To give you an idea of
why did you say all of that?
To give you an idea of the length of time involved here, like I was I was young enough, and it was early enough back in time, back in the yonder years. There was what now you would call like an emo, but there was this like very sad alt girl who was like, she like didn't want to be called by her real name. She was like, my name is Allison Chains. Right,
my God.
because of the grunge band Alice in Chains. So she said her name was Allison. That's how fucking long ago the shit was. So so a bunch of kids had magic cards, and I remember the art, especially on the black cards, was just like fucking demonic and weird ass looking. And I was, I don't know, even as like 4th grade self, I was like, fuck yeah, that's the shit I want. I want to be in on this. And that's how I got into gaming in general, was because like I wasn't very good at the game, but the cards had like flavor text and the pictures and everything. The stories on them really kind of got me going.
He's still not very good at the game, just saying.
Who has like looked over your shoulder to help you win many an arena draft?
I suck.
Okay, now wait. What do you play, Zed?
What do you mean, what do I play? Like, what do I prefer to play?
What are your decks? Yeah.
I mean, it really depends. I'm a big fan of EDH in like meat space games, but and there, Karavek the Merciless is my favorite commander.
For those of you who don't know, that's Elder Dragon Horde, which is a
Elder Dragon Highlander.
No idea. I was like, what are you talking about?
It's
I'm like,
Commander.
What's your mana color you like?
Yeah.
Red black. I'm Rakdos at heart, sweet. Always and to the end.
There you go. No, you have nothing to throw at me.
I am red blue or red green. Those are my favorites.
Don't use your
I'm
problem.
a
Black
full red.
Yeah.
Goblin, yo.
Yeah,
Team
no,
Goblin.
goblins. And now there's dwarves. Oh my God, there's dwarves now. There haven't been dwarves in years.
Goblins.
I love dwarves. I know
Don't
goblins are
grow
There's
great.
a bunch of new
either.
goblins in the new set. I'm excited
know.
for that.
Me too. I am as well.
There.
But anyways, Zed, how did you get
as far
started
as-
in role playing?
So I was playing Magic with a friend of mine, and I was such a weird little nerdy kid that I had taken the basic. I'm throwing BBs at her. I had taken the basic conceit of Magic and like turned that into my like worldview. And me, nerdy 5th grader, I was explaining this to one of my friends. Like didn't bat an eye, didn't blink, just accepted what I was saying. Is like, oh yeah, no, sure, that'll make sense. That could totally be a thing. And then this is a Sackboy, and this is a Lucas the spider she threw at me.
Oh, it's adorable.
They are adorable. Anyway, and then yeah. So
Welcome to the party. We give good relationship advice.
Yeah, this is if you want to know how to have a successful marriage, just chuck shit at each other. That's what you do.
yep.
You just
It
chuck
actually, I can't even begin to tell you how valuable that is. But he had been playing D&D for a long time, and so he was like, "Hey, you would probably like this D&D thing. You should come play." I said, "I have nothing better to do, and that sounds cool." And so we played D&D. So I made Elvex Rathkeldon, who was the most like ridiculously named elven rogue I could think of at the time. We were playing AD&D with Thaco and all that shit. 2-hit armor class 0. Back when different classes leveled at different paces, and your thief skills could all go. Were judged on a percentile scale of up to 100%, except that they could actually go beyond it. Yeah. Anywho, why I stay in gaming though? So over the years, my feeling on gaming has kind of gone. It changes, right? Like when I first got into it, I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'm a superhero. Like it was all about empowerment. And then when I was a teenager, it went the way all things did when I was a teenager, which was, hey, sometimes girls do this stuff. And that was when I got really into live action role play. Because I was like, oh shit, there's girls there. And hey, look, most of them are wearing goth type clothes. I'm into that. Let's go. And so like, particularly Vampire the Masquerade, the LARP version became like my whole deal for a long time, partially because of that. Largely because, let's be honest, it was almost entirely because of that. I like telling stories and being a part of stories, and I like the competitive aspect of it for a long time, especially with.
Gotten hit by a door that one time.
Yeah, that one time. Yeah, I did meet my wife via LARPing, so can't really.
Pretty
complain.
sure we have that clip somewhere on the channel too.
Oh yeah, we certainly do, and that's something that we've definitely talked about. But why I keep doing it? I can't believe she missed. She's like literally 2 feet away from it.
There you go.
This is a sperm. She threw the egg. These were wedding gifts. He's a wild thing.
We were paid bits.
Oh, were we?
Yes,
We were paid bits.
Yes,
for
we
you
were paid bits to throw
at
things at you. That is, yeah.
Oh, thank you, Judo. Ass. Anyway, this is a shed aquarium penguin.
Aw.
Sean said that's enough. And then Sackboy and Lucas again. All right, so I keep with it because I really enjoy the problem solving aspect, and I also like assisting other people in solving problems. But I like watching people like figure things out. I like figuring out tough stuff. Like when I'm playing, I'm really into solving the problems. When I'm running a game, I'm really into creating problems for others to solve.
Sweet. Okay. Yeah.
And I find that that to be the coolest part. Sorry, I'm done, and hopefully I won't be attacked anymore.
Yeah, we'll see. It is early, and I'm
if there's more
merely
bits.
guaranteeing it's going to be happening.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be more things chucked at your head. Just not right now. Jack.
So, my start in gaming. So there was like a kind of start, and then like a real start for me. So the kind of start was, and I had honestly forgot about this until recent. Was it summer camp one time? There was this one kid, and we were all sitting around bored at summer camp, and like we should do something, but what are we gonna do? And this guy's like, well, I could like run you Dungeons and Dragons. And it was a very, very Christian camp. And we're like, oh my God, that's devil worship. And he's like, oh my God, you're all idiots. Stop that. Actually like walked us through it, and we were like, oh no, this is actually cool. So the very first time I ever played, I think I played a paladin. And we had no character sheets, no dice, and we just theater of the mind did it. And it was pretty cool.
The fact that you went to a Christian summer camp helps to explain so many things.
Oh, that is an entire discussion. Dear God. Oh man. Yeah.
On the next episode of Welcome Home. No.
How the fuck did this happen on the next?
What?
How did you go from a religious separatist movement to being queer? Well, let's have a conversation. But, and then like the real start for me was in college. And I'm chilling in the lounge, the student lounge.
Yeah.
And they had a couple of video games there, and I was really bad at Killer Instinct, and so I was playing it a lot to try and be not as bad at Killer Instinct.
I remember
I'm
Killer
still
Instinct.
awful at Killer Instinct, by the way.
Was that the one with the dinosaurs?
No, oh man, I know the one you're talking about, but it wasn't that one.
Okay.
Killer Instinct was like the first like more 3D than Mortal Kombat one.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool looking.
Yeah, it was pretty cool looking.
Yeah. And this guy walks in and goes, "Hey, does anyone want to play Vampire?" And young goth ass me went, "Sorry, what?" So like my first like real gaming experience was Vampire.
That's
which is fascinating.
Yeah, because it's normally like LARP isn't where a lot of people start, right?
No, it was tabletop.
Oh, it was tabletop Vampire. Fascinating. Yeah, well, it was also what, like early 2000s?
Yes, it was.
Yeah,
I think for a second I was like, what was that?
That was kind of the height of the White Wolf thing. Was that like late 90s, early 2000s time?
Although, I mean, back at our KSU games, and even up in Cleveland, we got a lot of newbies who had never played like D&D or really anything prior to LARP. Like we used to run our games on Kent State campus, and there are a lot of times where people would come by not because they like were interested in role playing so much as they saw all these weirdos hanging out, because we were at like this fucking student center. And, you know, it's like, well, they saw all these weirdos hanging out and we seem to be having a good time. So they would just come by, and sometimes they would stay for multiple games, and then hooray, new player. There were a number that we got like that, actually.
Oh, yeah. The walkouts.
I do miss Vampire LARPing. Vampire LARPing is one of the most fun things. I also did this game called Amp Guard, which was like foam combat LARPing.
Oh yeah,
I was one of those for years.
I did Dagger Hair for a long time. I was in the SCA for a while. In fact, I still have my armor and whatnot. Same with Danielle. The only reason why, Portia. The only reason why we're not doing that right now is it was a combination of like job related things and scheduling and all sorts of other stuff. Yeah. But we would like to get back to it at some point. SCA is a hell of a lot of fun. It's Dagger Hair, but instead of like in Dagger Hair and Amp Guard, it's like you pad the weapons and don't worry so much about the people. In the SCA, you pad the people because the weapons are made of rattan, which is like solid bamboo, like with no hollow inside. It's a hell of a lot of fun.
Hitting people hard.
Oh shit, yeah. Yep.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun.
And I think for me, go ahead. Go.
Oh, but then like we talk about D&D as like a gateway for so many people. D&D was like my 4th or 5th system. So it was weird. It was
second. Yeah.
It was Vampire, Shadowrun, Besom.
Oh my God! Big eye, small mouth.
I know, right? Come on, was it D&D after that? I feel like there was another one in between. But yeah, and so then D&D 3rd edition, and then into 3.5.
Yeah. So my whole deal was Palladium role-playing games. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Ninjas and Super Spies, and Heroes Unlimited were what I kind of started on. And why is every other game system easy to me? Because I started on those. That's why. They're the most arcane, weird thing. And I played a lot of D&D 2nd edition early on as well. But the first thing I ever remember playing was Heroes Unlimited, where it came out of a conversation at summer camp as well, come to think of it. In my Boy Scout troop, we were at our Boy Scout summer camp, or I think we were probably in Cub Scouts at the time. And my one friend was like, "Oh, do you know about role-playing games or whatever?" And I'm like, not really. And he's like, "You should come check this out. You can be superheroes and stuff." And I'm like, okay. Yeah. And then we made characters, and it was like the most complex and weird thing, but I loved it. And I'm like, yeah, I get a +1 to roll with punch fall. That's awesome. I get 8 attacks per melee. That's amazing, right? But the one I've loved ever since, and will still love always, is Robotech, because I fell in love with the toys and the actual show long before I knew there was a role-playing game. And then I found out there was a role-playing game for this thing I absolutely loved, where I could be like, "Oh my God, I could be in Robotech!" And that sealed the deal for me for role-playing game forever.
I feel like to some degree, there's like an essence of that for most of us. Like, I was into I would always check out the Robotech books, not because I would read them necessarily, but because I would like stare at the illustrations and whatnot, like the loadouts in the back, and I would just stare at those for fucking hours. Or reading like Lord of the Rings or any of the other various like fantasy novels or movies or whatever. And it's one thing to be able to like see all that stuff, but it's another thing to be able to like to do it, right? And whereas like if I'm particularly big into sports, I could watch the sports on TV, but I could also like join a beer league or something and go get involved, right? But there really isn't that option for nerdy shit unless it's role playing a lot of the time anyway.
Yeah, honestly, like online communities have made it so much more accessible. Like I was just telling someone the other day, I have no idea how D&D like sank into my consciousness. I have like no idea where I first heard of it or how I understood it. I think it was just a part of nerd culture by that time. but I knew that I always wanted to like get into it and try it because it was cool and it was interesting. And so spaces like this have actually made it more accessible, because for the longest time I was just like going to my local comic book store and, picking up comic books, and I was like, cool, there's all this other shit, but I got no idea how to get into it. So I guess it's just me and my comic books. So yeah.
Yeah. Jack, you were going to say something too, yeah?
Robotech, the one with like the disposable character sheets?
No.
Is that the game? No. Oh, or is it Mech something? It's not Mech Warrior.
Mech Warrior had pads of character sheets, but I
yes,
think you're talking
a
about
set of those somewhere.
Heavy Gear.
No, it was Mech Warrior.
Okay. Yeah, Mech Warrior.
An old friend of mine
gave
me a giant pad of like sheets that I still have kicking around in a garage somewhere. I need to dig out one day.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
Mech role-playing games, people. Mech role-playing games. Where are those these days? We need more mech role-playing games.
Well, there will be one whenever you run one.
Yeah. See, that's the.
And isn't that the shit of it?
Wait,
isn't that the shit? Hey,
I've been trying to channel right now. Actually, we have Millennium Knights. I mean,
true.
The legally distinct Power Rangers.
Yes.
I mean, I've been I've still got them right next to me. How long had I been talking about Engine Heart? But I had to run it to get people to do it, right? Like
that's usually how it is.
That was fun to watch too.
Oh yeah.
Thanks.
It was fun to play. It was a fascinating game, and I want to do a whole show on indie games and like games that you've never heard of, and why you should play them. And yeah, but I have more questions for everyone. And if you have any questions for us, please put them in chat. Michelle Ely asked a great question, but because it's primarily directed at me, I'm going to save it until the end because it's how did the channel start, and I believe Jack was here from very early on, but we'll talk about that at the end.
I can answer how the channel started. We used to play D&D on Saturdays, and then you decided to do more.
Also, yes, that is the Reader's Digest version, indeed. So, on the topic of beginnings, at some point in time for every campaign, you have to make a new character. You have to think about that character. You have to figure out how they fit into the world. You have to figure out what the hell you want to do and why. And so I'm interested in how you all approach putting together a new character for a new campaign. And this time, we'll start with Jack.
Right, so, oh yeah, starting a new session or campaign. I haven't run a campaign. So this is an interesting question, but I've run a number of one-shots.
Oh, no, I mean your character in a campaign.
Oh.
Yeah, like how do you think about putting together a character for a new campaign?
Oh, wow, that's fun. I usually start with just figuring out... It's a process of figuring out who they are, and that usually involves a week or many of digging into music. Let's go with Ivan. Ivan Kukushkin, the Zemitsi that I played for. Whatever the name of the game.
A Crusade of Thorns.
The Crusade of Thorns.
Damn it.
That is the one. But yeah, like with Ivan, I backed into Ivan. Actually, Zed was instrumental in that with the questionnaire that he put together, and I was able to like dig into stuff. I listened to tons of Russian Orthodox liturgical music. I researching art and time periods and things like that, and eventually like working on that voice. The voice is a key for me. I don't have a character until I have their voice. A number of them, they have these touchstones like, hello, my name is Ivan. I can drop right into that, or hello there, my name's Lucian. Where, and it's ways that you drop into characters, and I cannot have a character without my voice. That is just a key for me. And I'm eventually going to run out of them, but hopefully not for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, and there tends to be a lot of, I guess it just does come down to, for me, it's voice. That is the key touchstone for any character that I build. Until I have that, it's just a concept in numbers and stuff. But yeah, I will walk through the house talking in different voices until I have the right one. And that can take a while, and it drives everyone at my house crazy sometimes. But it's just a matter of figuring out who's someone gonna be.
Yeah. So we actually have a follow-up question from chat for you, Jack. Why, Galen? Why?
God,
For those of you who don't
Galen.
know, Galen was the character that Jack played in the last Friday Night D&D campaign who betrayed the party.
Galen is one of my greatest successes, I think, because I in no way intended for him to be that much of a bastard. Like, the way that I built him, Galen is the man who got everything he wanted and realized it's nothing he wanted or nothing he needed.
How did he come to that realization? Like, how do you go through that process?
It was walking through the backstory for Galen. Galen's entire backstory was like, I'm going to be this shining example of truth and justice and the Waterdeep Guard. And great, you go to get there and you failed to get in. Didn't pass. And it just crushed Galen. So that's when the Archfey came to Galen and said, sure, I can get you in, no problem. I decided then that it was just this idea of, the Archfey will give you exactly what you want. May not be what you need, though. And so Galen got in and realized that it was a nightmare. And just everything from there, every time they were given something good, they couldn't just accept that it was good. They had to read into it. They had to think that something was wrong with it, right up until the end where they backstabbed the whole party and ran off with the money.
Yeah.
Like, to try and turn it into the Guard, yeah, that was their goal, but they lost sight of the team and the good the team was doing in order to, because they were so rigidly defined in their worldview of this must be good, therefore that must be bad. Look, just because I almost got your sister killed, I'm not the one that ultimately did. Let's make that clear.
I got your sister killed.
I love you.
Let's be real about that. I got your character's sister
Not me.
killed. It's fascinating that. So, let's just talk about D&D, right? Building your character. Is class and stats and stuff like that less important to you than personality?
Oh God, yes.
Okay.
Like, I love playing warlocks in general. Evan in our new game is the first time I've stayed with a wizard past the first episode. I had a wizard actually, in the first episode of Dragon Dark Days, and I couldn't get it. I couldn't click with the character, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to move forward. So yeah, it's like class and stats are cool and stuff because it gives me kind of a rough idea of where things are, but I'm going to drill down in there from their personality, and like I develop their personality as the time goes.
Sure.
Evan is still a very rough stone, whereas Galen by the end was a very well-faceted gem.
Evan, your character in our Friday Night D&D game.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure where that one's going to go, and I'm excited to see.
Right.
I like not knowing.
Awesome. Zed, what about you? How do you think about putting together a character?
Any number of ways, really.
Thank you for that amazing lead.
You're extremely welcome. No, so it depends on the thing that I'm doing and the whatnots and the bits all around it. So, for example, in LARP, I would often make a character based entirely around a costume piece I wanted to wear. I found a leather biker jacket and a cowboy hat that I thought looked pretty cool on me. So I made Carver, who was this like racist Southern La Sombra, who was awesome, by the way. And just to sort of like revisit a brief thing, part of why I'm largely done with LARP is because I've done specifically with Vampire so many goddamn things. That character alone was Prince, Baron, and Bishop all in the same run.
Damn.
Just because it was like, let's see what we do with this thing. And it was,
Shit.
To the point that I made a bear of him.
So she made a bear of it. Anyway, because, okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
You're going to have to hold Carver Bear.
Okay. As far as where, like, how I decide to make a character, so sometimes it's costume things. So it's like, maybe I've got a jacket and a hat I want to wear. And so I make a character that does it. Or, you know, there have been other times where I come up with a voice, or come up with a personality trait, or I come up with an interesting combo of abilities. Sometimes I do make characters based on abilities and other things. Yeah. Sometimes I make characters based on just like a sort of a joke that we made the week before. Another LARP character that I had for a long time that showed up as a different version in our Mother of Monsters campaign was Belmont Hubris. That's a guy. That's a Malkavian.
Fuck that guy.
that's a character I played at LARP who died almost equally messily.
Good.
You know, but that was because I had found a costume piece. It was this awful looking plaid jacket that just somehow fucking fit me that I found at a thrift store. And it was that combined with like a jokey conversation we had and then a voice. And so those three things combined to make that character. And so that's how a lot of characters come about. But sometimes I'll make a character to fill a particular slot in a group. Like I'll wait until everyone else has already picked what they're doing, and then I'll go, okay, well, based on what's already here, what is missing? And then I'll make something to fill in there. I really don't have like a specific method. It's very fluid based on the needs of what's happening at the time, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense. Yeah, I'm very much the same way. But interesting. Leona.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to hear these responses because for me, so much of it is setting based in the games that I played, right? Or, you know, just whatever kind of like speaks to me. Like, my character Sita for Emissaries of Avithna was very much based upon the setting. You know, what was it about the setting that spoke to me? What was it about, you know, and I kind of like, it's those things that kind of pique my interest that I kind of pull from, and I kind of just pull those bits and pieces together. So for me, the stats, the class, the race, whatever, like none of that matters, right? It's who do I want to be, who do I want to play, right? Same with the Crusade of Thorns. It was, well, I really want to play a vampire, but I want to do her my way. I want her to be South Asian. I want her to be different. I want her to be interesting. And she turned out to be a hard ass, and that was a lot of fun. But yeah, it was like I started with this small kernel of an idea of, I want her to be like this, and this is the one thing that I know, and everything just kind of blossoms from there. And that's typically how I do things. The same thing with Celeste, who is my current Friday Night D&D character. Celeste Storm, again, she started from just, you know, okay, well, here's a setting. It was the pirate play-by-post game, and that was, you know, there was a setting, and I was like, okay, cool. Well, you know, here's an idea. Here's something that's kind of speaking to me, and let me find the things that fit that, and kind of just build her from that. And then never got a chance to really play her, you know, let her spread her wings. And so this, you know, Blood and Shackles was a great fit for her, and it just felt like it clicked. So that's why I brought her in there.
Awesome.
Something I wanted to kind of mention. I know that Jack is a pro wrestling fan. I don't know, Leona, if you are.
Not so
That's
much.
okay.
I haven't had much experience with it.
And Thrak, I know you're sort of a lapsed fan, but sort of beginning to take another look at what's going on right now.
I've got an eye on not ECW. What is it?
AEW.
AEW, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
ECW is an older one.
Yeah.
So
AEW is some good shit.
So here's the deal. A while ago, there were a couple of different documentaries that came out, and one of the questions asked is like, well, how do you come up with a wrestling persona? And the sort of universal response to this is that it's basically like your wrestling persona, if it's a good one, is usually just a heightened version of you in some way. You know, and I've found that to be true in most aspects of RPGs as well, because obviously it's you playing the character and it's all ad lib, right? Like it's all on the spot. So everything that you're doing is going to come from like your, you know, experiences and whatever else. Like that's how it's going to be informed. And so typically I find that it's some sort of a heightened version of an aspect of me for any given character. So like Fadegeist in our Shadowrun game is like a heightened version of my like need to protect people. And also, frankly, my desire to hurt things. Um, in our mouse guard game, my character's personality is sort of a heightened version of my desire to teach people, but also a heightened version of like how kind of gruff and prickly I can be sometimes. Pretty much every character that I make, regardless of where I started, they're going to end up being like some version of me that's just a little bit tweaked in a particular area, right?
Yeah. I relate to that.
Yeah. I think that's true for a lot of gamers. I know for me, when I kind of sit down and start thinking about making a character, I'm really diffuse. Like, I will have like 2 or 3. I don't write a ton of backstory unless I'm in a situation where that needs to be a thing, which is one of the reasons why I love 7C, by the way, and we'll talk about that at some point, probably not tonight. But really asking players about what they want their story to be, I think adds another layer of character creation, interaction that's important. But to me, I'll have like 2 or 3 lines and like, or just a concept like, I want to be a warlock, but The Witcher, right? And like my favorite warlock I've ever played is essentially built around that concept. He's a surly monster hunter, and as things happen in game, it's a very dungeon world. The language we use today is a very dungeon world way to think about it, right? We leave a lot of blanks, and I just wait for them to be filled in by what the world around me is, and that's how I kind of start reacting to them. Sometimes I love to build a character based on powers, right? Like sometimes for me it is a numbers game first. Like I want to be the smartest person in this group. My character will be defined by his intelligence, right? And so that's a very stats specific way to make a character, and I think that's okay. I think it comes down to the expectations that are set by the GM. But we actually had a side question based off this conversation from 4 that I wanted to drag in, which was, what's one of your, like... So the full question was, how many characters each of you have played, and which ones made the biggest impact for you? I kind of want to pare that down, because I know Jack, Zed, and I have all probably played a lot of characters, and Leona's probably starting to get up there now, too. And so... I'm interested in taking a part of that question, which is, what character has made the biggest impact on you? And this time, since I went Leona around to Jack and then Jack around to Leona, I'll start with Zed.
Well, thank you. Does that mean that the next one you start with? And then...
I have no idea. I'm just making this up as I go. Who the hell knows?
I'm wondering how the logic behind the system works.
No, it's just whatever I feel like.
Because how can I min-max it if I don't know the rules?
I'm leaving blanks. I'm leaving spaces to find out as we play.
Play to find out, Zed.
Yeah, we'll play to find out. Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So there are 2 easy answers for me because I'm a jerk and I defy your rules. The easiest answer is the first one, which was Elvex Wrathkilden, who I played for on and off for the better part of a decade. Me and my high school buddies would still get together, but we're finally into a different campaign now. That was the character that got me started. I literally have, for my 25th birthday, my friends from that group gave me a framed version of that character.
I'm literally trying to.
In fact, I'm certain it's up here somewhere, but I'm okay without it here. No. I don't. They can just believe that I have it. Anyway.
So cute.
But it's a framed version of the character, like written pristinely that says, "In case of emergency, break glass." And that was a really nice gesture. But then also Carver, that racist Southern Lasombra, particularly impactful for me because that was the character I was playing when I met Portia. So arguably changed my life in the most literal and permanent sense of any role-playing game character I played otherwise. So, aw. So those are the 2 I'd say probably. Gaming has actually shaped my life, and I'm sure that's the case for especially for Jack. I would imagine, and I know for Throck as well. Like when we started doing the stuff at an age where everything that was informed by it afterwards, is like permanently altered because of our experience as role players.
Truth.
Seriously.
Truth.
Oh my god.
Cool. We'll do Jack next.
You know, it's funny, because the answer is Jack.
Oh, sure.
He was not my first character, but Jack Cross, Captain Jack Cross, is the longest running character that I've ever played across multiple systems, LARPs, D&D, just Dungeon World now. Yeah, all sorts of different things. Jack has become such an iconic part of my life. I mean, that's my name now, is Jack. This pirate persona, and it's interesting that, like, you know how, Zed, you were talking about everything, like a good character is you turned up to 11. In some ways my characters are me turned up to 11, in other ways they're not me turned up to 11.
Sure.
And Jack is one of those. Jack was my fake it till you make it persona, because I was a nerdy, awkward, weird teenager. Surprise, like, you know, I'm sure most of us were. And Jack was anything but that. Jack was suave. Jack talked to people. Jack was
your Stefan or Kel?
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah, nice. I like that. And like through that, I really did fake it till I make it, and became this very confident person that, you know, talks to people and happy and things like that. Yeah, good times. But like, yeah, like Jack has spawned, again, my name, tons of arts. This tattoo is my pirate flag.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and like, it has been, and I'm always finding new cool things. Like my character Evan is a cousin at this point of Jack Cross, or nephew, sorry, or nibbling, sorry, because Jack Cross is part of the whole family in there. It's interesting. So this is what I'm doing with Evan, and if Evan dies, Evan's siblings is like my next generation of that character, as it were. So
Right
it's it's interesting.
Cool. Leona.
I mean, I haven't played that many characters.
Sure.
I do think of the ones that I've played so far, I do think Audra was the one that was has probably stayed with me the strongest, or just had the biggest impact for me. And I think it's just because of all of the moments that happened on that stream. Like,
and so Audra was the character in your Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes,
stream.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's yeah, and it was, you know, there were so many intense, powerful moments, and like moments where I convinced both Zed and Doc that I was crying.
As much as I'm still convinced you were crying, but as to whether or not it was like stage crying or not,
it was stage crying. I was acting
because water was coming out.
No, there was no water.
I remember this, and I messaged her being like, "Oh my God, are you okay?"
I had multiple
and she's messaging
people.
me being like, "Oh yeah, no, this is stage crying." I was like, "Holy shit!"
Yeah, I had multiple people like throughout the span of that campaign, because when there were high intensity moments, I had people be like, "Shit, are you okay?" And I'm like, "I'm good." Yeah, and I think that's when I really fall in love with the character, and I think that's why that character stays with me so strongly. I love those moments, and just being able to sink completely into them and to really just kind of play whatever comes to life. And there were so many intense moments, like especially towards the end of that show, like when Audra was face to face with a much older vampire who totally scrambled her brains, and like that everything that came after that, right, was just, oh my God. And so yeah, I think Audra's my favorite, and I think that speaks a lot to just being able to, like, especially with amazing DMs like Throck, is just being able to like let go and just sink into a character and just be able to like really feel all of it. And just, yeah, I love it. It was magic for me.
Yeah, and it's something that's come across in what all of you have said. I don't it's weird for me to say. I don't have like there was a 7C character I played who was a Castilian duelist who was really awesome, but I don't remember his name. It was like 8 words long. I don't really have a good answer to the question, other than maybe one vampire LARP character named Johnny Clarcuzio, who won who essentially won vampire a little bit, which was pretty great for me. But other than that, like the thing that came out from everything you all were saying is that what we take away from the table is real, right? Like we share these emotional moments, we share these thoughtful pieces, and we use the veneer of fiction to tell the story, but the emotions and memories we walk away from at the table stick with us forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's on my most philosophical days about role-playing, what I tell people is role-playing games are the modern bardic tradition, where we all sit around the fire and tell stories together. And it's kind of true. It's kind of not, because a bardic tradition tells ancient tales passed on from one to another, and we tell new stories together that are clearly based on ancient tales, but there are stories, and from them we build new memories, new connections, new emotions that we carry with us. And I think that's, to me, that's one of the most important things about role-playing. Yeah. But we're talking about beginnings, not takeaways. So my next big question for everyone is related to this one, actually. It's not how do you make your character, but how do you as a person, when you're sitting down for your very first game, at a new campaign, it could be with the same people you played with forever, but like, how do you approach as a player, not as a character, coming into a new game and like preparing yourself for it and getting to know all your folks and all that stuff? Like, is there a process you go through, or do you just kind of go, yep, let's play a game? And we'll start with Jack.
You go first. No, wait. No, bullshit. You go first. I go last. Jack goes third. And Leona goes second.
Fine. Yep. I will go first. Okay.
Jesus, there's a system. I've sussed it out.
I like to go in knowing the world really well, or at least knowing my character's place in it really well, because that makes me feel comfortable being able to sit down and have some fluency in the game, and be like, oh, I can interact here. I can sit into this character in this world. And I also, like, I want to know... Oh, well, thank you for the follow, Derbling.
Hey, thanks, Derbling.
And I also, from a player-only perspective, I want to know the other people I'm playing with. I want to feel relatively comfortable when I sit down at the table and know that we're all kind of sharing the same like meta rule set, like the safety tools and stuff like that, before we go in. But I also I don't want to know characters' backgrounds, but I want to get a feeling for how dynamics are going to play out. Like, if you're playing a lawful good knight, how are we going to deal with that if I'm playing a chaotic neutral thief, right? Or if I'm playing someone who breaks the law for good reasons, and you're like, the laws are good reasons, you should not do that, right? Those are the kind of things that I want to know before I go into a game, just to make sure that I feel like my character, one, will gel with everyone else, because I think it's really important, especially in the first game, that you keep character friction, and this is also coming from a DM as well, you keep inter-party friction as low as possible, and you grease the wheels towards the team working together as best as possible, and allow the inter-party friction to come up later when you learn more about everyone. Because you want the table to feel like they're going to be able to play together. And so being a good player is, even if I don't think, oh, my character wouldn't do exactly that, I would do it anyways. I would do the thing that isn't exactly probably what my character would do further down the line, because I want to make sure that everyone is comfortable playing in the game together and that we feel like we're heading off in a good direction to start. And that's kind of how I think about it, right? Those are the three things. I want to know that we all share the same kind of meta rule set. I want to know what world I'm living in, and I want to kind of know what sort of feeling I'm going to get off the other characters so that I can bounce off of those. Who was next, Zed? Was it
Leona?
Leona. Okay.
Okay.
Oh wait, that way from where I am on the thing.
Okay, so for me, again, it comes back to setting. I think I like knowing the setting. That to me is like, okay, I know my character and I know the setting, and that gives me an idea of like how my character might interact in the world. Those are kind of the two core things. Definitely it helps to know a little bit about the characters, and so that you kind of have an idea just from the get-go of like, okay, they're all gonna they all kind of seem cohesive. But I've been in situations where I didn't know anything about the other characters, but just in those first 10 minutes of each person describing their characters, I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here, right? And then you just start to form those bonds. So yeah, I'm pretty free form, so long as I feel, I mean, as a newbie role player, I feel like I've never played two of anything. I've played a different setting every single time, or a different system every single time. So for me, it's just been like, okay, I kind of know what I'm doing. I kind of know my character. I kind of have a character sheet. Fuck it, let's go see what happens. Is basically how I operate. So
yeah, and that's how I'm in one shots. I'm like, fuck it, let's go. I have stats. Let's do a thing. Yay!
Exactly. Especially in one shots, you can definitely say fuck it. And I've definitely, I think, played a lot of one shots, so I think that's why I've been able to kind of be like, screw it, let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
I haven't done as many campaigns. I think Blood and Shackles officially counts as my third ever campaign. And even for those, it's like I didn't know the mechanics so well. Neither did I with Vampire the Masquerade. And D&D, I kind of know a little bit. No, fourth. There we go. And yeah, so for me, it's more about, okay, what is the world, and what is my character doing in that world? Because the DM knows the mechanics and I'll learn as I go, but it's about, figuring out how my character is going to interact with people and just figuring that out and then going from there.
For sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And and I think that's a great way to kind of take it for real. And then Jack is next.
So when I'm going to go sit down with somebody at a table, and this has changed significantly from when I first started. When I first started, it was, I'll sit down with anybody, I'll play anything, and it's great. Now, I am a lot more guarded of my time and my energy. One of the first things I'm going to lay out is, yo, I'm queer as fuck, I'm non-binary, these are my pronouns, and those first interactions, like on the server, it's fine because I know we're all there for a common purpose, and I can be a lot more relaxed. But when I go outside of the server, it is a lot of, I have a couple of barriers that I need to pull it up first to make sure that we're going to be cool.
Right.
Because I want to make sure that I'm going to have a safe role-playing experience. My time is fucking precious.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I have been in games where I walked away with headaches and just feeling like shit. And it's like, I won't do that again. And so, like, I am very careful with new people, especially, of just, I want to make sure that we're all going to be cool here before I like really jump in. But if it's like an existing group, like, the Friday night crew, I mean, that's easy for me. I know the people, we've played together, we've talked, we've laughed, we've cried, we have that deeper understanding. And with that, it's honestly, I can just make a character and I know they're going to make some weird, cool shit and it's going to be amazing. And I kind of don't want to know in those cases.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be fun to find out. So like, yeah, I'll get a name, a class, and a race, and that's it. Cool. That's all I want to hear. Unless we're doing some background stuff.
Yeah.
But it's very, there's a lot of initial work of, are we going to be good? But once we're past that, let's go have a bunch of fun. Just do silliness.
Yeah, and it's so interesting. I think a lot of people who watch a lot of role-playing streams but maybe don't play as much, which is a growing population of people, it turns out, see the DM's work on the show and see the players work on their characters, but there's this whole back end to it, right? Where you really need to feel comfortable with the table you're at. You need to make sure that there are ground rules there, and that you know that when you're going to role play, or you're going to be emotionally vulnerable, that there will be good aftercare if aftercare needs to happen. Because I think, and Zed, I'm sorry, I'm going to get to you as well, but I think Jackie brought up something really important, which is that I think we're in a different space from where we were in role playing maybe when like some of us started, which is where you're like, fuck it, we're going to go play role-playing. This guy's going to be a shithead, and you're going to go get mad about it afterwards, and that's going to be all it is, right? And Now we're much more mindful of that. And it's actually interesting. I always thought LARP did a really good job of this because everybody always went out to dinner afterwards, right? And it was never explicitly like we're gonna go do aftercare. It was we're gonna go do food, but you go interact with the people. Denny's, or we had a great one up in Cleveland that was amazing, and we had Denny's and all sorts of stuff. And there was this kind of it was this aftercare that wasn't defined as aftercare because these people you were with and you probably had huge interpersonal conflicts with, you were now sharing a plate of mozzarella sticks with, right? Like, and so there was a way to kind of get past that I don't know that always exists. And so I just wanted to throw that out there as well. And Zed, what about you?
Well, so there's been a lot of really good stuff brought up, and a number of things that I can sort of echo and support and lift. I mean, so as a player, it's different for me than as a GM, right? When I'm running a game, one of my first and foremost and primary jobs is to make sure that everyone at the table or everyone in the LARP is not a shithead, and or is not going to be a shithead to other people. So, for example, I mean, I've run LARPs with 60, 70 players in them. Regularly, week after week after week. And in those kind of scenarios, if you've got someone who's an absolute whack job, sometimes you have to cut them loose. Playing Vampire the Masquerade, I'm sorry, but the people who come in with custom built fangs, right, who paid thousands of dollars for them, those are the first motherfuckers I'm looking at with a shitload of side eye to go, man, maybe you take this shit too seriously. You need to go. This isn't what you want. You're not going to get what you want, and I guarantee you, none of my players are going to get what they want while you're here. And it's not that they had fangs. It's just the kind of mentality that came along with the sorts of people who typically did was fairly consistently fuckheaded.
Yes.
So when I'm running a game, my point and purpose, aside from helping to facilitate a story, is also to help facilitate the group, right? When I'm playing a game, it's a little bit different. Of course, I want to get along with everybody, but my first and foremost purpose there is push the story, make things happen, do shit. So it used to be if I would show up at a LARP, especially with LARP, the order of the day is be as loud as you fucking can. If I'm the loud, confident guy in the room, people are going to listen. People are going to stay the fuck out of my way. The game goes completely differently. And so, I've had characters who have shown up in LARPs and to established games. And just because I'm a loud dude and I'm big and I'm, tall and whatnot, they're like, hey, you want to be Primogen? Hey, you should be the sheriff or whatever, right? Just shit happens, right? And because I'm loud, it goes. And I've played a number of characters who were loud assholes, but then we had that post game thing where I could go afterwards and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm completely different from that in real life. That's not me. I started playing Carver, and I never. I should point out, though Carver was racist, I never once said the N-word, because no fucking way. But he did a lot of really shitty things.
When I first met him, when he was playing Carver, I was literally terrified of him. I'd never met him before. He was loud. He was angry. He was in people's faces to the comfortable extent of you're doing theater with each other. You're each other's audience. You're going to be in each other's faces. But I was literally terrified of him. Then we went to midnight breakfast, and I realized he was a human being. In the post wrap up at the game set, he apologized. He talked like a human, explained it was the character, whatever. People really seemed to enjoy him. But I only got that side of him when we went to breakfast.
Yeah, so I apologized during post-game wrap-up.
Every game
for the first year that I played that character.
No, it was always.
Oh, was it? Okay.
It was always.
But that was a character that I had brought to that game, without knowing anyone there.
Yep.
We showed up at that game sight unseen. We had found them on Facebook, and that was the character I thought I should play. So
decisions were made.
And it worked out in the end, but again, it was due in large part to the good work that the STs who were already running that game did, where like they helped to facilitate and make sure that people weren't totally shitty. And then it was also due to the opportunity afterwards to be like, hey, shit, sorry, right? But I don't know that I would do that now. Right? Like, I don't know that I would try that now. I feel like the loudness, sure, but I don't know about necessarily going that far these days. And that's not a oh, it's hard to be a white man. It's I don't know that I want to be that much of a dick. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I could. I don't know if I could wrap my head around that anymore. Yeah. That was a very specific point in time for me. I really like this other question though that we got. Just to sort of poke. I think that's a good one.
This is from Dribbler, right?
Do we want Leona to go first or last?
I feel like first.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not? So the question specifically is, as a person of color, I'm interested in hearing y'all's take on this feeling that I have to only play a non-human character to have the assumed default for my character not be white. And I've been, ever since I saw that question, I've been really chewing on it. I think the first question I would ask of the DM actually is, what is the default in your setting? Because a lot of times, a lot of these games are made with that default. It's not even as a person of color. It's not even, on us. It's that the system, the settings, the games are built upon whiteness. It's so deeply inherent. When you start to, I've done some race studies and all that kind of stuff. And when you start to really dig into how deeply pervasive whiteness is, it's sometimes very hard to separate the game from that whiteness. So first of all, ask your DM what the default is in your setting. And I can say that because, for example, on the Musafirs that Mariam runs, and that's a podcast on the Welcome to the Party Network, the default is South Asian. So I can be whatever the fuck I want. And that's really, really refreshing because there's not a lot of that. And the same kind of concept happened on Avithna, where the default happened to be animal folks, but it was a South Asian flavor. So it's definitely very setting dependent. I think it's really dependent upon the GM or GM and the setting that you're using and the system that you're using too, because I think systems can have some inherent unknown biases without them realizing. I do believe that. Even though I cannot point to a specific example right now, I think you just have to kind of be wary of that. Beyond that, I think it's really sad if we're in a world where you have to play a non-human character for the assumed default to not be white, right? Yeah. I think playing a character that is human, that is a person of color, is so important and so vital and so essential, right? And I think having, playing those people of color that are non-white, I think is so important as well, right? Like if we're constantly playing only the white characters as human and we're constantly, turning our people of color style characters into other races, that's also kind of, do you know what I mean? Like it kind of doesn't really fix the issue, right? And so I do want to play at some point a South Asian human in D&D, because I think that would be fucking cool. And I don't think we see enough of that, right? I think you can have humans, and I think the fact that the assumption is being made that someone is non-white has less to do about you and your character and more about the default world we live in and the worldview of the people that are at your table as well as your DM. So that's the long answer.
So can I follow up with you on that? Actually,
yes.
I want to follow up with you.
I wanted to come in, but fine. You can come in now. It's your show.
It's our show. I just spoke first. Okay. So it's interesting that you say that for a couple of reasons. And the big question I have is, I would imagine most people of color are a minority in any table they sit at, unless it's a specifically BIMPOC table. So in that world, what's the expectation that we should set for ourselves, those of us who are attempting allyship, in order to start deconstructing that, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, I think, well, and I'll give the perfect example, and that was a Crusade of Thorns, Audra. I was, playing a South Asian character in a primarily default white world. Like, noir is pretty white. That was a very
And black.
white setting. Black and white. Ha ha ha. Oh, that's such a bad joke. But it was, right? And I showed up and I was like, I kind of want to play a South Asian person, right? And the fact that it was like, I threw the question in chat of, is it okay if I play this, right? Like, is it okay if I play someone that's brown? And first of all, the answer was yes. And I think that's important. One, because that means that I am welcome to do the thing that I really want to do. That's the first step of allyship, as you said, yes. And then I think the second thing is, finding ways to accommodate that, right? Like, is it just that we want her to have that background, or is there something about that you want to kind of dive into? For me, it was just, I wanted her to have that background. I wanted her. Yeah.
Can I just point out two things about that? One, I find it amazing, because that's obviously my experience is different from yours, and I'll get into mine in a little bit. But I find it amazing that you felt that you had to ask. And two, what fucking asshole says no?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
I know that intellectually, but I can't wrap my head around the concept. Sorry. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
I apologize.
But think about it, right? Like, I was dealing, like, I was, this was what was being presented, was a noir vampire game. Vampire in general, when you think of vampires, you're not thinking of South Asian people. When you're thinking of noir, you're not thinking of South Asian people, right? So it was I kind of had to ask that question, especially since Vampire the Masquerade does feel quite Eurocentric sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's absolutely Eurocentric. It's all, yeah, 100%.
Well, it is very specifically, the game setting is Eurocentric and Judeo-Christian.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Zed, you
I didn't even need to say it.
Yeah.
So that's why I felt the need to ask, right? And the fact that I asked and that it was welcomed is kind of the first key step. I think beyond that, right, when people of color wanting to play people of color, just letting them have the space to do that and just listening to them, right? Listen to them, let them kind of lead on that aspect of things. In Emissaries of Avithna, Kate, has done her research as a storyteller and GM, but would regularly turn to myself and to Mariam, the other South Asian person on that show, to be like, can you fill in these gaps, right? Because y'all are the ones with the knowledge. So if you feel comfortable and if you want to, and I was absolutely thrilled, because absolutely, why wouldn't I want this to be as authentic as possible and share bits of my culture? And so, we'd be sitting there in the middle of game and we'd be like describing the food and like describing the outfits, and like just really adding that flavor in there. So I think that's another really great way to kind of like give that allyship, is give them the space to kind of fill in those blanks for you, rather than just being like, okay, you're South Asian, here, this is what happens to your character, and just no. Yeah.
No, oh honey, no.
So I have a really weird sort of understanding or history or whatever with regards to race and my place within it. And I've talked with Leona about this stuff before. Like, the more I read into it, and by the way, anyone who hasn't read The History of White People, even just read the first 40 or so pages of it. It's fucking fascinating, because the concept of whiteness itself is really bizarre. Like, it's purely a political creation, solely to create like a power base, basically. And so whenever like that power base wanes, they widen the net a little bit. They go, all right, well, you know what? You guys can be white too. Come on over here. You're with us now. Let's continue oppressing those people. And it's this thing that like has morphed over time. So like, so as a Jew, like my people would not have been considered white in like what I'll call the modern American sense of the term, as many as 80-ish, 100 years ago, right? So, and we've been kicked out of every fucking country possible. People keep trying to kill us. Like, that's why we're all head on a swivel all the time now. But, and even as a kid, like I've always felt other, right? Like even as a kid, I would, hang out at someone's house, like for a sleepover or whatever. And, the person's mom, and the accent is purely because I was in Phoenix at the time. When someone was like, y'all's people can eat mac and cheese, right? Oh, also, why did you kill our Lord and Savior? Like, these are actual questions asked to me as a 5-year-old, right? And so I was always the emissary of all Judaism whenever I was hanging out. And so I had to be on top of all this shit. So like the concept of otherness in gaming is something that I've always been sensitive to, although the specifics around like whiteness is something that I've only been probably within the last 5 years or so really sort of educating myself about. But I mean, Star Trek does it, right? Like nearly everyone in Star Trek is white except for aliens, right? They do the exact same kind of shit in Lord of the Rings and most everything else. Like, I mean, fuck the Lion King back in the day. It just is the way we see all this modern shit come at us. The sort of the question, I guess, to get back to it though, of like, how do you deal with that sensation of feeling like you should? The really simple answer is don't do that. Don't buy into what you think people are expecting. If you want to play a black or a brown person who's a human, then you have every right to do that and to expect that. And any group that you find yourself in that like looks askance at you for expecting such a thing, fuck them. You don't need those assholes. Like,
come join us.
Yeah, exactly. That's in my opinion the simplest answer. Now it's much harder to do when you're in the real world, and like the internet has really helped out a lot with this kind of thing, because when you're in the real world, if you're like the lone member or of your particular minority in say a smaller town where maybe there's not that many people who are into gaming or whatever, then it can be a lot harder to try to find your niche and to not constantly be treated as the other. But at least online, there are so many more options that you can be sort of a choosier consumer of gaming places, I guess.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
As a kid, like, I mean, I just kind of took it on the chin pretty much always, right? Like, people would tell me Jew jokes and I would just go, ha ha, good one. And sort of to turn it around, like, I perversely became fascinated with collecting Holocaust jokes when I was in high school, because even there I was still like one of like 4, right? And everyone knows, because of course they find out eventually. And so like I just kind of dealt with it, but it wasn't ever great. It was never like especially comfortable. In German class, my nickname was Kleine Jude, which is little Jew. And now understand, we all laughed about it at the time, but that's literally the exact same thing that my step grandfather in Auschwitz was called by the fucking guards, Kleine Jude, before they'd whack him with a truncheon. So I mean, I don't know. It's like, if you're in the real world, you deal with it in the exact same way you would deal with any kind of bullshit in the real world, right? Which is either you forge ahead or you say fuck it and you bail. Online, you have choices, you have options. Come hang with us, right? We'll try not to be fuckheads.
Yeah, and I want to give us
like.
Oh, go ahead.
So, I think a lot of this, one of the big things that those of us that aren't, BIMPOC can do is lead these conversations, or not lead them, but bring them up first to pave that way so BIMPOC folks don't keep having to have these conversations. Because eventually, from everything I hear, is you stop wanting to.
Yeah.
Because what the fuck is the point if you're just used to being told no over and over and over again, or fighting over and over and over again? It's tiring. So, like, it is our responsibility as allies to be like, hey, what's your stance on this? Start these, you little shit. Start these conversations. What did you just, I don't even know what this cat just knocked over. Start these conversations and things, and just, help to pave that way to make it easier for folks. So that I actually need to figure out what the hell she just knocked off.
Well, let me wrap this.
Sorry, you should never feel. You should never be made to feel that you have to ask permission to be you.
Brought me a mouse.
Oh, that's so cute.
You should never feel that you're in a position where you have to ask for permission to be who you are. That's I think that's really the boil. Like,
right.
You should. Sorry. All right, I'm getting mad.
No, so let me put a capstone on this by saying that this is one of the big problems in educating myself about becoming a better ally, which is a lifelong journey. I'm always looking for ways to ensure that everyone at my table is comfortable. And I personally will sometimes fail at that, but I realized I'm going to give a case in point, because let me just say I'm sorry for any DM or any player who's made you feel not okay for wanting to play to wanting to be a person of color at a table. That is fucking ridiculous. But the one thing, especially with this new D&D campaign that I created, I went through like 3 different settings and all of this shit because I kept running into all this problematic bullshit until I found something that legitimately made space for people of color in the world as like a major component of it, and didn't treat them tropey and didn't treat them like I even hate to say it, but like savages, right? Like that the countries that are primarily composed of people of color, some of them are more advanced than the eastern or the western countries in it, and it's about, I think part of it's about is the responsibility of whoever is running your game to ensure that the world that they are creating is open and receptive to that, right? I think that to me, I always think about it, well, what can I do to be a better ally? What's the action I can take? How can I verb this, right? How can I put energy behind this to make you feel more welcome? And to me, the way to do that, first and foremost, is to create a world in which those people are openly and obviously welcome, right? Or that, and oh god, I said those people, that also sounds terrible. Anyways, that everyone is openly and obviously welcome. And I think if you start with that assumption as the DM, you're putting everyone at a bit more comfort, because then I can lay out the world and go, look at all these different varied places you can be from, each with their own rich and interesting history. And some of them look like you. Some of them look like that person, right? And I think that opens the door to everybody a little bit. But we got a couple more questions that I wanted to knock out here before we wrap for the evening. And I think this has gone really well so far. I think this has been great. So first of all, and this is a quick kind of lightning round question. You can take a couple minutes on it, but like, what game do you want to start but haven't? And we'll start
playing
with Jack.
or running?
Either. Yeah. And we'll start with Jack.
Numenera, hands down. That's the game I want to play.
What is it?
I have Numenera.
Oh, okay.
It is a game that I have wanted to play for a long time. I have, frankly, too many of the setting books and have never played in it. The only time I've been in that world is in the Tides of Numenera video game, which is phenomenal, I should say. But it's just a system that lends itself to the fantasy and the weird, and man, I love it. I really, really, really want to play it.
For reals. And yeah, it looks great. I have a bunch of the books too, and I've always really wanted to play that as well. Zed.
I'm actually pretty satisfied. In the last little bit, I got to run Engine Heart. I'm currently in a Shadowrun game. I'm currently in a Mouse Guard game. Thanks, Welcome to the Party, for making all of my RPG dreams come true.
Yay!
But I think the only thing that I'm really kind of, sort of wistful about, I'd love to play Aberrant again. I think that would be cool. I really like superhero games, and I actually really like that system. I care less for the world setting, but I really like the system, which I know is sort of backwards from the way most people feel about White Wolf games. And then I think it would be cool. I haven't gotten to get in on this whole Blades in the Dark thing that everyone else has gotten to play,
awesome.
which, it looks cool every time I see it, and so I'd be interested in that. And Paranoia, I've been all hail computer. I've
All
been
hail computer.
bouncing around the idea
Hail
of
computer.
running an ongoing Paranoia campaign
Interesting.
rather than as a one shot. It can be done. There are ways, and I've been thinking about it.
Hey,
So-
Zed, you should also maybe.
Damn it, Zed.
Leona.
I'm sorry.
Just saying.
Okay.
Really
I
quick.
love you, Portia. Bye.
Damn it, Zed. I've been thinking about running one too.
Oh, great. I'll play.
Jack needs to run a game. They've never run a game. You need to run a game.
Except, yeah.
Really
yeah.
thinking about running Paranoia. It is a thought I've been having, but damn it. Okay.
I'd play.
Thanks, Welcome Party RPG.
Yeah. Leona.
For me, I mean, the world's my oyster. I haven't played that many, games and all that kind of stuff. So really, it's kind of wherever I'm drawn to next. And there's always so many interesting games coming out that I'm kind of very much just willing to kind of go with whatever lands in my lap next. Definitely Numenera, definitely Paranoia. Like, there's so many options that I want to play. There's so many really fucking cool indie games too. So really, it's whatever opportunity I get next, I will take, because yeah, there's so much cool shit out there, and I cannot pick one.
Yeah. Yeah, there are. And for me it's Band of Blades. Band of Blades is the one game because I love Blades in the Dark.
Oh, yeah. Which, you and me.
Yeah, we're going to do that. And here's the thing. I love Grimdark so much. It's my favorite thing in the world. Like, Grimdark is what I do when I can. And Band of Blades is based off the
Black Company!
The Black Company books, which are like some of like the most foundational Grimdark fantasy out there, and they're
fucking
amazing.
Glenn Cook is a badass, yo.
Hells yes. And so that's the one I really, really want to play or run, whatever, man, because I never get to play games. Well, I'm in 2 games right now. I shouldn't complain too much, but I think that's the one for me that really pops out. Do we have any other questions from chat? This is your last chance, because I have one more question for the team, and then we have one more question from Michelle, but I wanted to leave it for the end. So, I have, coming into a new session of a game. So Zed, I'm going to ask this to you from a DM perspective, and Leona and Jack, I'm going to ask this to you from a player perspective. Coming in to a session of a game you've already been playing, how do you get started? What's your mindset like? How do you prep yourself for the next session? And we'll start with Leona.
For me, when I'm playing a game, when I'm getting ready for the next session, I think oftentimes it's just refreshing my memory, right? We're playing games once a week. A lot of stuff happens in a week. Sometimes stuff falls out of your brain. So I try to, if I can, like, rewatch an episode for those key moments that I know I really need to hold on to. I did that with the Crusade of Thorns, or I'm, rereading my notes. Beyond that, I don't really do a whole lot of, like, pre-game prep. I just kind of, I know that whatever I feel and play is going to be true, so long as I just, keep in mind the stuff that I need to keep in mind. And so that's why I usually take notes. So
Sure.
Yeah, my pre-game prep is pretty quick and easy.
That's great. Yeah, and just being able to look at your notes and be ready to go is awesome.
Mm-hmm,
I love it when my players take notes. Jack.
The things I do to prepare myself, one, since it's my touchstone, I practice the voice a little bit just to get in. Kind of try and remember. I don't like to go back and watch and things like that, and it depends on the character. Some characters are going to take notes, some characters are not. And so I'm going to either read notes if my character's taking them, or not and just run with it if they don't, and just use whatever is in the memory banks. And it is very character dependent how I prepare for a game. So yeah, like Galen. No, I took a lot of notes for Galen. For Ivan, Ivan never really. The secret with Ivan was, I just lied all the time. It was easier. Yeah, I totally knew that was going to happen. I totally planned that. I'm lying out of my ass time. So you don't have to prepare for that. With Evan, I don't know yet. We'll see. So it's very character dependent how I prepare.
Fair. Yeah, right on. And Zed, DM wise, coming into a new session.
weirdly, well, maybe not that weirdly, naturally, my voice just went, would you like fries with a hat? My natural, my GMing style has sort of evolved along with my teaching style, which is to say that it used to be that I had to prepare everything meticulously. And then over time, I've gotten to a point where I can, I need to know a couple of things, and then just about everything else is kind of on the fly. When running a LARP, usually I was running with multiple people. And so those required some level of preparation. And when we ran the Mother of Monsters campaign, that was like 3 streams, but all connected. That required a fair amount of preparation, because you want to make sure that you're not like shitting in someone else's Cheerios accidentally, or on purpose, depending on your opinion of them. But so like I've been in LARP games where like the STs didn't get along and didn't converse with each other, and sometimes even were vaguely at war and would like run opposing plot lines to fuck with each other. Those games don't stay fun very long, and people have a tendency to leave. So like now though, it's less about like preparing everything meticulously, because a plan is just a list of things your players won't do. So I instead put together like, here's some monsters, here's some possible encounter locations, here are the stats of aspects of the world, and then I give them an objective and let them interact, and then I just go with whatever the fuck they feel like. So for the first game, there's a lot of prep because I have to put together the whole world. It's all very front loaded. But then after that, it kind of propels itself for the most part. Like once I've got the world pretty well stocked away, then it's just a matter of what the players need as to which part of it I have to access at any given time.
Yeah, and I'm a lot the same way. So the one thing I love to do, I love modules, and I'm kind of actually terrified right now because we're not running a module. We are running a campaign purely driven on the stories that the players have given me, and a few fronts from Dungeon World. If you know about fronts, which are shit happens, it's on a clock, that stuff's going to happen, you'll find out about it, and if you want to do something about it, you will, and if you don't, then that shit's still going to happen, right? And so it used to be that I would go through and I would kind of read through the module, make sure I knew what was going on, take a couple of notes, figure out how I wanted to change it, adjust a bunch of stuff, and that was very prep heavy, right? Even having the module written, having to go in and change it for your specific group, because here's the thing, D&D is not balanced, right? Can't be. It's impossible. Don't ever think D&D is balanced. You'd be wrong. It's just, you have to figure out...
D&D is totally balanced. You could be this kind of caster or this kind I'm
Exactly.
You be the bard, which is the best class.
Bard is always best class. Best class.
No.
Wait, what? Best class? What? I'm sorry, what?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
Yeah, Bard in chat right there.
Yeah,
Bard
right there.
is a class that exists. If you would like to be able to do all things poorly and know things well, be a bard.
I guess if it were 3rd edition, you'd be right, but it's not. So welcome to the future. Welcome to the future. Anyways, with new campaigns and my new way of thinking about things is, what are the stories the players want to tell? How do we tell that effectively? And what NPCs are important to tell those stories? See, bards are awesome. It's right there. You even have a mug. You know it in your heart that bards are awesome. But like, what are the ways in which we tell that story meaningfully to the characters? It takes up much more of my thought process now than what an encounter specifically looks like. Although I still care about encounters and I like building cool encounters, and I will always be a tactical map person, because I think that's the best way to run combat in D&D. Fight me! But I'm going to probably have a few less tactical maps in this game, as I won't be able to plan for everything the players do, and it's not like a dungeon crawl. And so my prep comes down to, I will definitely watch the episode once or twice. I will take some notes. I will look for interesting things that characters did that maybe they didn't even know were interesting at the time, and try and figure out a way to loop them into the next session. One, to give a sense of continuity, and two, to make them go, oh yeah, which makes me happy when that happens. And then I just think about the drama and how to push it forward. Those are.
I think that's cool that you do that. I have considered doing that sort of thing before. I just don't have that kind of time. Like I think it's I think that's great dedication that you're going back and watching those, because I think that you can definitely mine that for a lot of cool shit. Players do things that, or well, people do things, right? But players in our games do things that they don't maybe even recognize at the time. Sort of like gave away a hint of something or other that you can then kind of pull on. And I think that's a good way to go about it. I did want to real quick. When I was playing, specifically for LARP, I would get into character. I would prepare for game by listening to music. I would make these mix CDs for any given character. Yeah, they are. And even now in games I'm playing, like I made one for Shadowrun, I made one for Spot. I'll still go through. I'll make like a Sabat playlist or a Shadowrun playlist. I'll make a playlist on Spotify using whatever like in my head makes sense. And I do still do that to some degree to sort of get in the headspace.
Yeah. And then last question was from Michelle Ely, and it was about how did the channel start? And I may have questions for you all as I give this explanation, but back in the day, this is probably 3 years ago when we first started streaming D&D.
It has not been that long. It has been
2.
No. Pause.
Oh God.
No, but it has been that long, yeah.
It has been that long since I started streaming D&D. It has not been that long that the community has been around. So back when we first started streaming D&D, one of the things I noticed was that it was a lot of people who looked like me and not a lot of people who didn't look like me. And I've always tried to live, or the older I get, I shall say, I won't say always, I was an asshole when I was in my teens and 20s. Ever since I got involved in social justice movements about 15 years ago, I have tried to increase my allyship, right? And it seemed incredibly unjust to me that there weren't spaces, or that at least there weren't that I could find at the time, that lifted up voices that weren't like mine. And so having run with Zed in crew and what was a home game that turned into a stream, I knew I wanted to do more, and I wanted to found a community that was kind of based on the ethic of compassion, inclusion, intersectionality, and equity. And I think we've gone a long way towards that. And I think we have a long way to go. And it started when I talked to Kimages, who was the other co-founder and was our initial graphic designer. And she gave me a lot of the ideas and thoughts, because she'd been streaming a lot longer than I had, about how to do it and kind of go about it well, and create a platform that could sustain people learning how to stream, as well as create a platform that lifted up voices that gave space to people who weren't me, right? Like, I can build a house, but I shouldn't be the only person living in it, I guess is what that comes down to, right? Like, Welcome to the Party isn't a house that I built for myself. It's a house that I built for people I haven't met yet, and people who are sitting at this table right now, and a lot of people who have been in and out of chat all night. And that's the hope, is that it continues to grow that way. And I think that's actually a pretty good place to end on that. Although I do have a note here. What is that?
I wanted to give a quick shout out, though, a little bit to a friend of ours who probably isn't watching because he often doesn't watch streamy thingies, but to Baz, because so Baz is a longtime friend of ours who transitioned over the course of many years, and a lot of those conversations that we first had about like figuring out how to understand a lot of the concepts that now I would comfortably say we almost not take for granted, but like feel like should be common knowledge to some degree. I remember a lot of fairly contentious conversations of like, no, wait just a minute, what the fuck am I supposed to call you now? And shit like that, of just these like original sort of growing pains of trying to wrap our heads around some of these concepts. Initially, we didn't start as fucking awesome and open-minded as we are now. And I'm sure that 10 years down the line, I'll look back at things I do now and go, oh, Jesus Christ. But I do want to sort of give that credit in part to Baz, because he consistently brought in the opinion of, well, now wait a second, you guys are being awfully close-minded here, and that would usually then cause us to go, what the fuck are you talking about? What do you mean? What, Jesus? What are you so mad about this time, right? And then we'd have these conversations, and you know, I don't know. I feel a humongous amount, for what it's worth. Baz also helped me get through high school. Like, I would not exist as a human being with a diploma otherwise. But I want to sort of give that credit to me where it's due, with regard to Stream Kitty, with regard to sort of kind of opening at least my eyes to like the many ways in which I wasn't openly antagonizing people, but also wasn't being welcoming either. Right?
Yes.
It's not like I was wandering around gay bashing, but the ways in which I could do more when I felt like I was doing enough.
And oh no, Leanna, do you want to go?
I was just gonna say, I think a lot of us definitely started that way, and I speak for myself on that too. I've been reflecting on that a lot lately. Is that I did not start out the way I am now, and it wasn't until I hit university that my worldview completely like split open and changed. Up until then, you know. And so I think there's a little bit of grace and space that I try to give people, because I realize that a lot of us have been on these journeys and we didn't all know, right, to start with. I think it's very common for a lot of people. We are learning, and as we continue to learn and become better allies, because it is a lifelong thing. Yeah, it's just kind of one of those things. You know, we have those one or two people that initially cause us to go, wait a minute, I need to question, you know, the way I'm doing things. So there is those inciting incidents. And I think that's very, very common. And I think a lot of us have origin stories like that, especially when it comes to social justice work, because yeah, it's very hard to kind of wake up, right, and just be fighting for this stuff, right? We all grow up with our biases, whether they are internal or whether they are fed to us by parents or by society. But the work that you do every single day to change that, to break that, to make a difference matters, right? It's so easy sometimes to lose sight of, you know, it's like, oh fuck, you know, I'm probably gonna regret this, or oh fuck, I'm not doing enough. Probably true, but at the same time, every single day that you fight to learn to be a better person is a big deal. I often say to folks on the Discord, self-care is radical, because nobody really wants you to take care of yourself, and sometimes taking a step back and taking a breather, self-care is radical, and you're still making a difference.
Yeah.
Hey, Leona, how do you feel about your prime minister?
You want me to go into that whole thing?
No, I don't. Because we're running up against the wall.
Yes, we are running out of time, and I do have to bounce. Look, the very shortest form of that is that everyone fucking makes mistakes. I think, you know, talking about politics, there's a lot of different ways that we can go about it. I do think that he, you know, has had to learn and grow himself, right? These are his mistakes he made years ago. And I think it's preposterous that politics and the media are just like, this is a bad person. No, because I'm sure 10 years ago, all of the rest of y'all were jerk faces too.
If you were ever imperfect ever, then you are,
Yeah.
And the media will roast you for that.
Yeah, and I'm going to wrap it up with this thought that we don't talk a lot about the cost of allyship, right? And people of color can be allies in an intersectional world. LGBTQ folk can be allies in an intersectional world. It comes a lot down on those folk who look like me when we talk about allyship, but I want everyone to think about this expanded idea of what it means to be an ally, because we all grow up with our own internal biases. We all grow up with our own structures of oppression, and it's how do we dismantle those, and that takes emotional work and effort, and it is a journey. Wow, this is ending in a heavy place, but it is a journey, and it is okay for you to feel shitty about yourself and then heal from that, or be mad at other people and then dive into why that is, and you can mine that for great storytelling. Just FYI.
Mm-hmm.
If you really want to reflect on it, there's great storytelling to be mined there as well. But
I can summarize.
Literally ending the stream.
Yeah, I know, and okay. But you ended so heavily, and I wanted to help you and to lift the thing that I tell my students when we're doing creative writing is a story. A story without conflict is just a list of events. Okay.
Yeah.
We bring the conflict with us, and that helps to fuel so much of what we get to do, and therein breeds catharsis.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's a heavy note, but honestly, it's the work Welcome to the Party does every single day, right? It's
Yeah.
what we're all about. It's what our conversations revolve around a lot of the time. So it's the perfect note to end on.
Yeah. And with that, let's go around and get everyone shouting themselves out. Tell us where you're from, or tell us where you're from. I'm from Throcktopia. That's where I'm from. Tell us what you're in, where we can find you on the internet, all that sort of good stuff. And we will start with Jack.
Hey everybody, I am CapJack, or at CapJCross on the Twitters, and you can find me 2 places here on Welcome to the Party now. First on Friday nights with the Blood and Shackles game run by the delightful Throck there, and played also by... And on Saturday nights for our Scum and Villainy game, where we are a pack of space bastards. That is run by the phenomenal Foxbar. Let's see. Outside of that, yeah, you can. I'm one of the mods of Welcome to the Party, so you can find me on there all the dang time.
Yay!
And if you're getting weird volume stuff from me, it's probably this cat's fault right here, because he's messing with the wires. So,
Awesome. Hey, Zed.
Okay. Well, I am Zed or ZX on Twitter. I am findable in all manner of places. I am in 3 games right now. I run Dark Knights in District 10, Ravnica themed 5e game that'll be coming up on Monday. That goes from 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On Saturdays, I'm in our Mouse Guard campaign run by the Awesome Four, and Throck is in that game with me as well. And that's from 3:45 to 6:45, I want to say.
Yes.
And then on Sundays, I'm in Emerald Knights and Neurospikes, which is a Shadowrun game that Throck is running. That's over on the Devil's Luck Gaming channel. And that starts at a time that I'm blanking on. I know that the
It's
call
8
comes in at the time, and then I show up whenever it's supposed to
8
happen.
p.m.
And now there's just a running thing where I never know when it actually is, so that I can just completely piss off Throck, and it makes me so
Well, that's
happy.
because Zed is the patron saint of perpetually late.
Also, I was very seriously considering just like flashing some nip here at the end, but
Do it.
I'm gonna.
I mean, you
No,
started
no,
licking your wife, so you might as well
Yeah, we
flash
did.
some man nip.
We did.
Yeah.
Just to how about this? 1,000 bits for my boobs.
Oh my god!
Actually, I'm confident that
cannot,
breaks
in
all
fact,
sorts of Twitch.
Now that you have
TOS.
said
It doesn't
do that,
because you're
you
a dude.
cannot do that now.
Yeah.
Actually,
No, it doesn't break terms of
does not count.
service because you're a dude.
Yes, male
Just
male
FYI.
presenting nipples are somehow
are
okay.
somehow okay.
God, I
Yeah.
hate them.
Yeah.
Anyways, Leona.
Hi, my name is Leona. You can find me on Twitter at the Leona Maple. I am a mod on the Discord, so please feel free to join us. We've got a BIMPOC private space, so if you are a person of color looking for a space to hang out, come join us. Beyond that, you can find me on Friday nights at the moment. I am on Blood and Shackles, our pirate D&D 7th homebrewed campaign goodness, and it is amazing with Throck down there and with Jack over there. So join us.
All right. And hey, I'm Sean. The first thing I have to talk about is our amazing sponsors, because that's my job. Thank you to Roll20, the amazing virtual tabletop where you can go and play games for free with your friends. All you gotta do is click on the link below. They have a great marketplace where you can find all the stuff you want to play games online in a great web-based system of role-playing. I lost steam at the end, but click on the link below for a free account, and we get benefits from it when you do, so it helps us out, and it helps them out. Tabletop Loot, the great purveyor of all sorts of amazing dicey goodness, where you can use the code WTTP Dice to get 15% off your next purchase of anything from their store. And So Nerdware. It's our official merch sponsor, and So Nerdwear is what the nerds wear. It's where you can go to get all sorts of great t-shirts and mugs and bowlers and things. Bye! Love you! We gotta go! Okay, we gotta...
Love you!
Leona's leaving. Bye. Okay, don't
Don't turn off the camera!
Okay, good. And Devin Rue, our great art sponsor, who's been with us since the beginning. We love her madly. Thank you for your support. And I have been Sean, also known as @ThruckPlace on the tweeters. You can find me all over the place on Welcome to the Party. I run our Friday night D&D game at 9 p.m. set in the world of 7th Sea, where we play level 1, so we're not really pirates yet. We're people trying to be pirates. And yeah, 9 p.m.
Pirates in Potentia?
Yeah, Pirates in Potentia. It's a D&D 5e game with Jack and Leona. And then you can find me on Saturdays at 3:45 p.m. playing in Queens of Ven, our mouse guard game. Sundays, Legend of the Five Rings is currently on hiatus until I get my sleep schedule sorted out because new meds are rough, but also make me feel better. So yay, it's just about figuring it out. And then at night I play in Emerald Knights and Neurospikes at 8 p.m. Shadowrun, I run that game as well with Zed. And then Tuesdays I play Rifts at 8 p.m. and Wednesdays I play Blades in the Dark at 8 p.m. All here because I don't have... This is my life. This is what I do. I play role-playing games for a living, apparently. Yeah, so we love you very much. We're going to go raid some dear friends of ours at Color Guards because we haven't said hi to them in a long time. So we're going to go raid.
Well, we keep having new games of our own to lead into now.
I know.
Our rating is cut down because we're just always leading into...
Right? So, thank you all so much for coming and welcome home. We'll see you on the next episode. I have no clue when or what it will be, but it could be here next Sunday at 8 p.m. Keep a lookout on Twitter. That's where you figure it out. Okay, bye.
Now turn the button with your left hand.